have strong views on voting reform. So
I really, when I listen to Meg, I always get deeply irritated. And the reason why is because I think you've got native. I mean, people who are brought in to work with people on select committees end up going native, and they start, you know, moving with politicians, and they start thinking, no, they're not so bad after all because they listen to Meg Russell. But I can tell you that many people out there do not feel that there's anything wrong with saying, putting up a poster and saying, wanted for crimes against democracy, for some of the people who did some of the most egregious stuff around the allowances. And this business about, you know, all sorts of people do all kinds of fiddling. We expect somehow better of our politicians, and we're right to expect better. And what I think was so disgraceful was the idea that people could actually end up having a property portfolio. I'll call this place my main residence, so I can put in a new bathroom, a new kitchen into the thing, and then I'll flip it somewhere else, and I'll put in a new kitchen and so on down there. Then I'll sell that property and make a profit at the expense of the taxpayer. I think that is actually
and then
criminal.
get defended.
So that is criminal. And if you want to put up a wanted poster and you're young people interested in democracy, as the people who are, we're campaigning around this current thing, then good luck to them, is what I say. Because I think that Gerald Kaufman, all manner of people ought to be shamed publicly for the things that they did, no matter what party they're in. PR, I'm fearful that it is slipping away. And I really do think that it is one of the core issues that we want to refresh our parliamentary and political system, and we really do want to put a bomb under the political class, then we have to stop this business that there are people up and down the country who feel their vote doesn't count. And I want people to feel that their vote will somehow count in some way. And I think that will seep away because this moment will pass, the shame will pass, and a new crowd of faces will come in, and then we'll find out in a few years' time just how ghastly they are. Now, yes, it's right that there was scepticism about politics and politicians in 1945. That hasn't changed. But scepticism is a healthy thing, it's a very British thing, and I'm all in favour of scepticism. Because when you start, people still would have said, I think our parliament's great. I think our parliamentary system is great. I believe in the cabinet system. They would have said all those things. People are now not saying that because they feel that somehow there are changes taking place, that we're becoming quasi-presidential, that somehow there are all these folk who end up getting given positions in the House of Lords because of money. They feel money plays too big a part. That money, in fact, does make a difference because too many politicians leave the jobs in government and go into big jobs.
Okay, so let's talk about the second part of that proposition, which was actually the net result may be that more people are excluded because only certain people are involved in, say, social activism. David, I know that sort of local politics is something that you've looked at. What's your view on that?
Well, I have looked at it quite a lot. I guess I can link the two things. Obviously, if we have a hung parliament, you might well get some form of PR. I don't think it will do quite what people expect. I mean, one of the consequences, in fact, I think over time, is it could break the main parties. Actually, that's one of the intriguing things about it, the two larger parties, I should say. And that goes to this underlying sort of seismic change in terms of the weakness of their kind of base, both kind of conceptual and emotional. So to me, some of the issues about, if you buy the argument of social skew and so on, actually, even that doesn't really do the trick. You end up having to do other kinds of reforms, like you want to get into more deliberative mechanisms. And one of the problems, I suppose, with just, well, everybody's going to be involved in politics all the time, it's just not really very realistic. We don't want to do that, because we already said we're not interested. Broadly speaking, about, well, more than 80% of people will say, yes, they'd like to be more involved or whatever, in general. And then you say, you give them specifically, well, would you personally like to be involved? And it drops to 25%. You say, well, are you actually involved? And it's less than 2%. So how do you solve this problem if we don't want to spend our lives doing politics, most of us? Obviously, in the room today, we're an odd group, probably, and yet deal with the social skew issue. And I think the answer is that conventional democratic reform doesn't do it. But as opposed to, for example, if you use a deliberative forum where you take a random sample of 100 people and you say, well, what do you want to do? Actually, then you do deal with the skew issue, and you deal with the fact that people, like me, as normal people, not people that will be able to say, yeah, I'm involved in it. I think that's a more plausible way forward, actually. And sorry, just we do have an institution like that, of course, which are juries. We do use legal juries. And you look at the trust ratings for legal juries, they are incredibly high. They're certainly more than 80%.
And do make a difference.